Right. You have to think Steve Borden was protective, though, of Sting. Did he have any issues
You
with you
know,
coming in and doing it?
it's a good question, and I'm sure nobody wants to be duplicated, right? I mean, they say, what is it? It's the
Flattery
sincerest form of flattery,
is
right?
something. Yeah,
If you're gonna, copy somebody. But this was not my decision at all. I had nothing to do with
right.
any of this. I'm just doing what I was told by the office and then trying to make the best of the situation. But I don't know how he felt, but in a way, too, you have to remember one thing. I was pushing his character for years, basically because
Mm,
I'm over there working as this MW Sting. He was up in the rafters, not really working, coming down, showing up every once in a while. Meanwhile, every night I'm out, wrestling as this character. So, in a sense, I helped push that probably, but I don't know how he felt about someone kind of, being his character, right? Um, but again, I was just doing really what I was told and trying to do the best job I could do with what I was supposed to be doing for the company.
how'd you get along with him personally?
I got along fine with him. I always admired him and Lex Luger too. Like two of the guys I remember when I first got in there, I thought that both of them handled themselves the most professionally and, were just like they were training. Obviously they were conducting themselves, very properly and serious about the business. And you watch that and they were at the time, they were guys to emulate, they were,
Right, of
on top of
course.
everything. Back then, everybody carried a Halliburton suitcase
Mhm,
and you remember those things. And
of course.
I remember watching Lex. He was very, uh, I don't know what the word is, just almost like, everything was perfect and laid out and he was very organized. And so you see that and you're like, oh, this is kind of nice.
Right. Did Sting ever give you any tips like don't don't do a punch like this? Sting does it like that.
No,
Anything like
he
that?
never did. I initially watched his tapes, obviously to see what he was doing because I had to mimic some of his stuff. But, he never really said anything about it. We didn't have much interaction. We did prosthetics. They did a one of him and me so we could kind of get these things. So I looked like him more in the beginning, but there wasn't much interaction over the whole character or anything like that. So I kind of felt like on my own a little bit on that in that regard. And but he was always nice with me and we never had a problem.
Was there any Sting versus? I don't remember any Sting versus Sting
Oh, but that
matches.
I've said this before in interviews. Like that would have been huge, especially
Yeah.
in Japan at the time. If we would have done a Sting versus Sting, there would have been a huge draw. And and I don't know. Again, this was above my pay grade. I don't know what they were thinking in the office, but I mean, there could have been so many scenarios with him and I. We could have wrestled each other. We could have teamed up together as two Stings, right? The two NWO Stings. It could have been a lot of interesting, I think, ways to push that whole thing. But I wasn't making those decisions, and I don't know that he was either. So, it's the NWO, ended up obviously changing drastically as it went on.
Did it ever happen? Was there ever a match?
No, no, never,
Not
never.
not 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 one.
No, we never wrestled.
Oh, okay. What about like any crazy Sting stunts? Do you ever have to drop from the
No,
rafters and all that? No.
thankfully they didn't ask me to, repel or anything like that. So I was grateful because I didn't really want to do that. And what happened to Owen too, when it's
Right.
just like, I don't want to be suspended anywhere. I would have probably done it had they asked me to, but thankfully I didn't. And then actually at one point I was really working in Japan, full time. So they were getting imposters of me to play me, because I wasn't
Wow.
there. So there were times when it was other people were dressing up as NWO Sting, which was fine. I mean, they just didn't have anybody because I was wrestling in Japan.
That makes sense. So, okay, yeah, because it seemed like towards the end it was just random guys with that mask on.
Yeah, they had to use other people. I think Chris Canyon did it one time. Some other people might have been under the pain and they were bringing people out to do stuff. So I don't know what they wanted to do with that character, but in Japan it was a serious character. Like it was
Right.
we ran NWO and Scott and I teamed up a lot and Team 2000 was after that. But as NWO with Muda, I mean Chono, Muda came in the beginning and then goes back. But we had a really, really amazing run in that company with that NWO at the time.
I had Sonny Ono on, and he told me just the money that the NWO shirts made in Japan was insane.
It was very, very popular. And it was amazing. I mean, we were selling out, every night. And so we're all main event every night working, a lot of tag matches, 8-man tags that they do in Japan. A lot of, as a group, we were wrestling together. And Scott will tell you, and I'm good friends with Scott to this day. And, it was an amazing experience selling out every night. And it was a great run for the few years that we were able to really get that going.